Courtney, welcome to another episode of Orange Perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you nervous?
I am very nervous.
Why?
Yes. I'm not used to being on camera, really talking in front of people. So,
Well, just act like you're talking to me.
okay, I can do that.
And we'll just have a conversation.
Perfect.
We just happen to be with a lot of lights.
Awesome.
And Ben Anderson over here watching us. A
Definitely
screen,
not nerve-wracking.
and some other thing. Yeah. And people will be walking by in the warehouse. But hey.
I feel even more calm now.
Yeah. I'm glad I was able to help. I think I probably exacerbated the situation, didn't I?
Possibly, just a little.
Made it a little bit worse.
No, it's okay. It's just us. We're just chatting.
Well, thanks for being on here,
Yeah,
even though it's a little bit anxious-ridden. Tell us about yourself, your role, and what you do here at the warehouse.
Yeah, awesome. So I am the head of training and development. I do a lot of the first round interviews for general managers for Breakout and Activate. I do their training, kind of just stick with them for their first couple of months at the store, just help guide them into the role.
Where did you get your start with us? That was in Indianapolis, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I started as general manager at South Indy. I was there for about a year and a half, and then my regional at the time, Brian, called me and asked me if I wanted North Indy, and he said, I'll give you 24 hours to think about it. But
24 hours?
Yes, but he said, if you say no, you better have a good reason.
Wow.
So I said, well, my answer is yes. He said, well, I want you to think about it. So the next day he said, well, what's your answer? And I said, well, it's still yes.
Well, when he first asked you that, what was your gut?
I had wanted to do it. We had been talking before about not being challenged enough. South Indy was just a smaller location. We had 5 rooms. I had been a general manager for years before that. So I was really ready to sink my teeth into a challenge, and he knew that.
So North Indy was a little bit more challenging. And
Definitely.
So your gut was like, yeah, give me a challenge. Have you always been someone that always wants more challenge?
Yes and no. I'm a creature of comfort as well. So I like things that are comfortable to me. So leaving South Indy for that reason was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But I always like the idea of just doing something new. It's very exciting to me.
So how long were you in South Indy?
South Indy for a year and a half.
A year and a half. And then you moved to North Indy. And how long were you there?
I was there total for 2 years. However, about a year into that, I talked with you and Jimmy, and then I stepped more into the beginning of this position. So I did both of them for about a year, and then I stepped away completely.
Do you remember how that started? I was trying to remember.
A little bit. So during COVID, I kept seeing other managers' names pop up on tasks, and I just thought, well, I want extra tasks. And so when I had my yearly review with Jimmy, I said, how do I become one of those managers? And he's like, I have no clue what you're talking about. I was like, the managers who help. He's like, I don't know what you're saying. So I don't know what I was seeing, but I thought managers were doing all these extra things, and I was like,
what tasks did you see? Do you remember?
I think maybe some people were helping like get the reviews back up and going. It was just coming out of COVID, kind of getting everything moving again.
Like different people were jumping in. Did
Yeah.
you do, were you involved with the virtual?
Yes,
as
yeah.
well?
I did virtual kidnapping for way longer than I would have liked.
Yeah, everybody was
interesting.
everybody was way longer
Yeah.
on the virtual, but it did like save us a little bit.
Absolutely. And it was nice to be in the store as the only person. I ran the games. I just did all my own projects and basically just managed myself. So that was nice.
Yeah. So what were some of the projects that you started helping us with?
I started stepping into just some HR situations, traveling to some stores. I helped in Evansville when the manager was out. That was actually at South Indy. And then I helped out at a couple stores with you. We traveled and talked to teams. So that was my first kind of step into helping out with the HR side of things.
Was there something particularly about that role that you liked more than being in the store, or?
I went to school for HR, and so I think just being a part of that felt natural to me. I really, really love being in the store, so it wasn't a matter of like, oh, I don't want to be in the store anymore. But I just started to, every time I came to the warehouse, it felt like home. I really liked everyone, and I just thought, I just want to be a bigger part of it.
You just wanted to be a bigger part of it. This is a theme. Our last episode was with John Kelly, and
Yeah.
he said kind of the same thing. And it sounds pretty similar to what he did. He was managing a store. We went to him and said, hey, can you help over here? And he immediately said yes. Do you think that that's part of the path to growing with the company, is just kind of saying yes? Or
I do think so. One thing that has always kind of given me the freedom to learn is that this company is so strong about, we want to give you the skills. It doesn't even have to be with us. We just want to give you the skills. So I think that gave me a freedom to start learning it without feeling something hanging over my head of what I have to move into, what I have to do. But definitely saying yes without feeling like a yes person. So I'm not just going to blindly say yes, but of course, just doing what people need of me.
Sure, yeah. And John and I talked about also that being an impact player move. And if you're listening, you haven't read that book, we highly encourage it.
Fantastic book.
Yeah, it's so good. It kind of articulates all those intangible things that we've talked about. Like, how do you look at your team, and there's one person that stands out, and you're just like, they've got it. Like, what is that got it part? And impact players articulates that a little bit. And I think you are one of those people within an organization that just kind of rose to the top. And I think a lot of it was just like, you just jumped in and filled gaps, and led in ways that we weren't necessarily realizing we even needed. And I think you jumped in and said, hey, I want to help. And we were like, how do you want to help? Yes, please. We need help. But you weren't looking for something bigger. You weren't looking for more pay. You weren't looking for anything. You were just like, I want to be a bigger part of this company, and I'm going to do that by just volunteering. And here we are, sitting
absolutely.
here now. And so your role now is training and development.
Yes.
And so what do you do day to day?
Day to day, I do a lot of right now Illumi courses. So
right.
it's just creating content for training programs, just consistency in the message, the branding. So I spend a lot of time there, and then it depends on what spot is open, what we're hiring for. So if we're currently hiring for something, a lot of my time is in the interview vetting process. So just going through those resumes, seeing who's going to be a good fit, chatting with them. Taking notes, kind of just going through that whole process. And then once we select someone, a lot of time goes into preparing for them to come out and train for a week. So
yeah, let's talk about the interview process first, and then let's talk about the training. So we have a 3-step process.
Yes.
You do the first round, and then Jimmy, and then I do the final round. So when you're talking about vetting, you're going through all these applicants. How do you know a good one from a bad one? What are some of the tricks of the trade?
Yeah, so in just looking at what they're writing, I'm just looking for someone who seems like they care with their answers. I get a lot of short answers like, I want to be a part of this company because it seems fun. Whereas a little more thought into that of what they researched, what they like about us. Those are the people that take the time to actually look at what they're going to be talking about. Once they're speaking to me, I'm looking for accountability. Someone who's not pushing things off on their previous work, coworkers. Even if something happened to them, they're saying this was my part in it. So I'm just really looking for people who aren't pushing the blame off, who want to be accountable, who are excitable, and who can take that excitement back to the store and really lead with that excitement.
So, like, let's take, for instance, we're about to open, or maybe by the time this is posted, we've opened Activate in Chicago. How many applicants did we have for manager there?
And we had over 330.
Over 330. So how did you go through 330 applicants trying to figure out whether they care or not?
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, no joke.
So it's just combing through. We have a couple of things that we utilize. I look at their resume, I look at their pre-screening answers, and then I send out an emotional intelligence assessment, just a judgment assessment, and I look at all of their answers. I'm not really using those assessments to kick them out of the running, but really to see where I would have to dig deep with them if I do chat with them. Just looking at their experience. I'm not, again, going to kick someone out because they've never been a manager.
Sure.
But they have to have some true leadership history there.
Yeah.
So
some qualities of leadership.
Absolutely.
And I do think that you hit on something that's really important is experience to us is it's there somewhere maybe, but it's very low on the totem pole. Experience does not matter as much to us. And I think this is a trend across the board in a lot of places that experience is mattering. It matters less and less because experience doesn't mean that you're going to, we've hired, let's talk about this for a minute. We've hired a lot of people with a lot of experience.
Yes.
And we've recently said this doesn't work very well.
Yeah,
Yeah, talk to me
absolutely.
about that.
I think sometimes they're just, when they have all this experience, they come in and they just think, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they stop taking the time to listen. And even if you have all the experience in the world, you can still learn something from somebody. But they don't come in with that mentality. They come in with, I'm ready to make changes. I'm ready to do this, to make it successful. And they're not even taking any time to say, I'm taking some time to learn this company and to learn what they want. So sometimes experience can really hinder them in that
Yeah,
aspect.
man, that is so good because I think we all want to jump in and contribute immediately. But what the best thing that someone can do is when they start a new position anywhere,
Yeah.
especially with us, is the first 3, 4, 6 months is just learn and absorb and grow with our culture and the world we created. And then down the road, you can start to add your contribution because we hired
Absolutely.
you for a reason, right? We
Yes.
hired you because we see that you're going to benefit this company. You're going to add to it, but you can't add to it unless you know it first. And I think
Definitely.
that often gets flipped on its head. And so we've had some bad apples and some bad
Yeah.
experiences with people that have a lot of experience. And that's not to say that those people are not helpful,
Sure.
because we've also hired the other side.
Yeah.
But it is something that's interesting that we look for something that's a little bit different than
Yeah.
what is traditionally seen as what the qualities of someone that you're looking for, someone that's teachable and learning.
Absolutely.
We've got some pretty young managers. I mean,
We do.
the person that replaced you in North Indy.
Yes. I think she was 19 or 20 when she took over.
Still really young, but
Still very
yeah.
young. Incredible mind. And
Right.
so and that was her first true leadership role as well.
Yeah.
So you would look at her on paper and be like, "Ooh, I don't know if she's ready for that."
Right.
And she's taken it and run with it, and she's done an amazing job.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So then you're hiring that person, and then you're in charge of training that person.
Yes.
What's the key, you think, to you only have a little bit of time with them? What's the key to like getting to the end of that week or 2 weeks of training and saying this was successful?
Staying on track. So there's a schedule for a reason, and sometimes we can get to talking and just go off on tangents and realize we're way off schedule. And so I think the more that we can stay on track in training, we're still building a bond, we're still getting to know each other, but we're really focused on what needs to be focused on. And there's a lot of information that they take home that very first week. And so it doesn't really have to be a bunch of extras. We just got to focus on that stuff.
How important do you think the first week of someone's work life with us is?
I think it's really important. The week that they're at the warehouse or the first week at the store?
Well, both. Maybe.
The week at the warehouse, I think, is extremely helpful. So when I started in South Indy, I came here for a week, and I was so grateful that I had that experience to match names with faces, get to know everyone, feel a little more at home here, a little more connected to this team. And then we kind of moved away from that as more like pre-COVID. And I think that we really should have stuck with that. And so when the opportunity came around, I was like, I really think that this is something we can get excited about and get them here. We talk about how we're all one team. It's not them versus us or the store versus the warehouse or headquarters. And I think bringing them here and just getting them immersed right away in our culture and our values just gets them on board. It kind of like hooks them into the company, and then this is what they show up for.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's a good point. We did used to train. We sent someone to their store to train there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The other downfall to that, I would think, would be being trained by the people that you're going to lead. Do you see that?
It's
as
hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It can lead to resentment. The staff feeling like they have to teach their new manager how to do the job, especially if one of those team members applied for the position and didn't get it.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
So the more we can send the manager there already equipped with knowledge, they're still going to have a lot to learn on site. But the more we can send them equipped, the easier the transition is.
Yeah, do you see that as a constant issue when you're going to an existing store with a team that's been there 2 or 3 years, and you're a manager from outside of our brand, or never really managed a escape room before or Activate or whatever? Do you see that as a...
I don't see a whole lot of turmoil there. except for the few maybe ASMs at the stores who applied for the position. There's usually that relationship is hard to recover once you get there. I've seen it happen. I've seen them recover it, and those managers jump on board and the teams jump right on board. But typically, if we have people who feel like they should get the role or feel like they really want it, they tend to kind of cycle out afterward.
Do you have any advice for managers going into an existing team that's been there, that team typically feels pretty united and it feels pretty like they have ownership?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to swing to either side of the pendulum of going in and being too nice because you don't want to rock the boat. So you just go in and everyone kind of just gets away with what they want to get away with. Or you go in and you're just being really hard. And you're like, these are the rules and I'm the new boss. But if you kind of find a middle ground of saying, I'm going to still, these are my standards and these are what we're going to immediately start doing. But I'm here for you and I'm here to listen and I am open and I'm curious about what works for you guys and what you want to change. So just be willing to listen, but find that middle ground of being kind but being firm.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any advice for managers in training in general, like how you approach training and how you look at training? And I know that it's still kind of new for you, the training aspect. When they're, managers are at their store level and they're training ASMs or just the basic hourly employee, what kind of advice would you give them for training, or
I think
maybe some tools?
Biggest thing, and I wish I knew this a lot sooner, was to not be scared of feedback. Feedback does not have to be bad. That does not mean tough conversation. It can be great feedback. It can be clarification questions. Just that communication piece. The
manager giving the employee feedback? Okay.
Yes. And so sometimes, especially when they're new and they start in and they want to give someone feedback, they don't want to make that person feel bad. But really, they're taking away that person's ability to grow in that moment. So both people grow. So just give the feedback. If you're doing it appropriately and professionally, you're not going to go in there and just make people mad and everyone's going to be stomping around angry. But start with that feedback. Just really just be open and communicate. And if you want something to change, just say it. Don't expect people to read minds. They're not mind readers. And so just talk about what you need, talk about what they need, and just keep talking. It's almost like a relationship. Just keep talking it out. The more you talk it out, the more you're going to clarify and the more you're all going to end up on the same page.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is when you are talking to someone and you are having that conversation, ask them what they got from the conversation. Ask them to clarify. Because if you're leaving on different pages, then that conversation did nothing to start with. So just like simply, what did you take away from this? I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk a minute about what you brought to the table when you first started with our company. What did you do before Breakout?
So I managed hotels for about 11 years before that.
Wow.
Yes.
You just slipped off there. You're like,
yes,
I manage hotels.
I manage
Done.
hotels. Yeah, it's a 24-hour industry that never stops. And so
But you were there for 11 years.
I was
Same hotel or different hotels?
Different hotels, different areas. My favorite would be any of the Hilton properties I've worked for. I think Hilton's a wonderful brand to work for. But there's a lot of joy in the customer service part of it. And so when I was at the front desk, that's kind of where I got hooked in hotels. And I loved making those connections and building those relationships. I'd have my regulars. They'd ask me about my life. I'd ask them about theirs. But then I started really getting interested in operations and managing it, and I just didn't realize how much I would dislike that in the hotel world. So towards the end of it, I just started to think, I want to stay in operations, but I do not want to stay in hotels.
What about the hotel world did you not like about operations?
There's not a lot of joy, and there's just constant busyness. For example, it's really hard to keep housekeepers on the team. And so there would be days where I was doing all of my things, then I was checking people in, and then I was going upstairs and cleaning 13 rooms.
Oh my gosh.
And then my team would say, we want development. So where do I fit that in? And so I think that it kind of let me get through all of the crappy parts of becoming a leader. And so when I started at Breakout, I really got to lean into the joy of it and like what's fun about it. So
hotels taught you kind of a little bit about yourself, what you loved.
Yes.
And then a little bit about what you don't love
yes.
and what you don't want to be like
yeah.
in terms of being in the operation. It doesn't have to be like that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure there's hotels out there that successfully balance that, but just towards the end of it, when I was a general manager, it just didn't end up being a good fit.
Like so much work, and it's just constant, and
It's
it never
constant.
stops.
Yeah, I mean, I could remember one day in particular, it was a Friday night, the hotel was sold out with baseball teams. So like baseball moms, they were all drinking in the lobby. The water burst.
Baseball moms.
Baseball moms.
Okay,
the kids
that's a totally
the
different
kids are
animal.
running around the hotel,
Oh.
and the baseball moms are
Wait,
drinking.
how are we talking?
Oh gosh, they ranged, but typically I would say the worst sports teams were maybe middle schoolers. And so kids were running around crazy everywhere, parents were drinking in the lobby, and water burst in the laundry room. Floods the first floor of the hotel, sets off the fire alarm, fire trucks come. We were still cleaning rooms from being sold out the night before. This was late at night. So now we're hauling laundry to a laundromat nearby, bringing it back. It was a nightmare. And I just thought, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life.
At that point, you're like, done. Wow.
Yeah, it was maybe a month or two later when I ended up leaving.
Because of the drunk baseball moms.
It's just a lot. And I think that for me, the difference of having a job and having a career is being able to wake up and be excited to go to work and love what I do. And that's just not where I was.
Yeah, for sure. Courtney, I think it's time for our new segment called Airplane Answers. Oh, I missed it. Okay, we're still trying to get this Airplane Answers segment down. I don't know if there's a sure way that I will catch it, but that was totally my fault. That was a really good throw from Ben.
Good job, Ben.
Here's the thing: is they throw me this paper airplane, and it has a question on it that I have not seen.
Okay.
And you have not seen that I'm going to ask, and you're going to answer.
Awesome.
All right. You ready?
All right.
Let me put my glasses on.
Okay.
And make sure I can read it first. Boy, their handwriting is not amazing either.
God.
It says,
I don't know who wrote this.
It's scribbled. So it says read here with an arrow. You have several tattoos. What is your favorite and why? That's a pretty easy softball. Okay. Yes.
I do have several tattoos. I've got 16 of them.
16?
16, yeah.
When did you start? Like how many years ago?
When I was 19, so
Okay.
2 years ago.
2 years ago? Wow.
I'm
Okay.
sticking with that answer.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say I have two favorites. One I've got on my chest, and it's or my rib cage. It's a butterfly with a breast cancer ribbon. It's for my mom, and so she's a breast cancer survivor. It's the only tattoo she's ever approved of, surprisingly enough.
Okay.
And then my other one is the one on my arm, and it's a Pokemon. It's an Oddish, and it's a shiny Oddish. And so the last couple of years of my life have been weird and a little difficult. And I spent a lot of time with my sister, and we just played Pokemon. We drove around. It was just something we did together that was kind of mindless and fun. And then, of course, I have to be a shiny one, because if I'm going to be an Oddish, I got to be a shiny one. So
I don't know any of this language that you speak right now.
those are the rare ones.
Okay,
those are the ones you find rarely.
Rare Pokemon.
Yeah.
And this is the tattoo you have
Yes.
because you had a rare time in your life.
Yes.
And it's with memories of your sister.
And because I'm odd, so
and you're
had to go with
odd.
the Oddish.
Wow, so
Yeah.
many things.
So many parts of it.
Okay, well, thanks for answering that. I guess we're done with that. I think my throw was better back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been around Breakout for a little while. One thing that comes up a lot is that there are stories related to certain locations or with Breakout. We might call this Breakout lore. Do you have any stories related to Breakout?
I don't know that if I have any Breakout lore specifically, but between the two stores I managed and all the stores I visited, there are two things that I have found at every store. And that is, one, they all have a ghost. They will tell you about their store ghost. They usually have a name.
At Breakout?
At every Breakout, they'll tell you about their store ghost. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And
Wow.
then, yeah. And so they'll say, oh, I heard this noise once. So if you hear that, that's just our ghost.
Okay. Had no idea.
And then the second one is that every single Breakout has at least one person who plays Dungeons and Dragons, if not more people.
That is very true.
That is just a theme throughout Breakout, myself included. So
Yeah. It's almost like, so you play Dungeons and Dragons?
I don't anymore, but when I lived in India, I did.
You used to.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that should be on the filter for whenever you're
really
hiring.
should.
Do you play Dungeons
Yeah.
and Dragons? And if you do not, then you probably don't fit here.
Yes, although I did have someone apply to be a general manager who told me their leadership training came from being a dungeon master. So
Maybe that's too far.
Maybe too far.
Okay.
Maybe a little too far in the
It's
opposite
so
direction.
funny. It's so funny to me because, me and my business partners, we are not gamers
Yeah.
and we're not in that fantasy world really at all. And, but we employ most of the people in the Breakout world, at
Yeah.
least, are in that world.
Absolutely.
Which is an interesting, business to create where everybody that's attracted to it is like different than you are. But it is what I say is what fills the gap between who we are as business people and what we want as values and all that. And then the ins and outs of the type of people and the guests that
Yeah.
come through are a lot like that as well. And so that world collides together really well. And to me, it makes a wonderful team together. Well, let's talk for a few minutes about you, Courtney,
Yeah.
the person. What do you do for fun? Other than get tattoos, apparently. I mean, if you have that many tattoos, then it's like, do you get like at least one a year?
Well, since I'm only 22.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Um,
You've gotten 8
I've gotten them all in 2 years.
That's right.
I think I average maybe one a year, probably. It's more like one of those when you're feeling a little stagnant. You're like,
Yeah.
I just really need to do something. I usually dye my hair, get a tattoo. So.
Oh, you dye your hair and get a tattoo.
But since taking this role, I haven't had any fun hair colors.
Okay.
So I've just been getting a lot more tattoos.
Okay. Why not fun hair colors?
I don't know. I just travel around everywhere, and I know that people take me seriously, but I want to continue like presenting a
Yeah.
more professional look than my blue hair. Although I
Yeah.
love my blue hair.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that's another topic that we could get in,
Yeah.
to talk about is there's certainly nothing wrong with different
Absolutely.
hair colors.
Yeah.
And, it's vibrant and fun, but at the same time, you have to be thoughtful about how you're presenting. And the same thing with tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Like if you had tattoos all over your face and your neck,
Yeah.
then there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you are presenting yourself in a certain way. So that's an interesting topic maybe for another day.
Absolutely.
But that's fun. So you, in terms of tattoos, hair color, what do you do day to day for fun? How do you blow off steam?
I play some video games with my sister and my boyfriend usually. I've never actually played video games until recently,
Oh,
but they've taught me how to play Fortnite, and so I'm actually getting pretty good at it.
yeah.
Yesterday I shot someone.
Yesterday you
myself.
shot someone.
Very
Okay.
proud of myself. They were all like, "Good job, Courtney, you killed someone." Things that you don't want to hear out of context, basically.
Yeah, that's not good.
So it's a lot of fun. And then I love to bake. I like to bake sweet things. So like chocolate chip banana nut bread is my favorite to make. I practice chocolate chip cookies or like peanut butter chocolate chip cookies I love. And then I love to be outside. So I was not at the place in my life to get a dog. So I have 2 cats because they can kind of take care of themselves. But I love to hike. And so I'm currently leash training them so they can be adventure cats with me.
You're leash training
I am
cats.
leash training my cats.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, they have cat harnesses and leashes, and we go out. We went to what's the place? Skybridge.
Okay. Yeah.
We just walked all the way across Skybridge, and then if there were dogs, I just kind of picked them up and held them and let the dogs pass, and then we went back down, and now they're becoming hiking kittens.
That is very fascinating. Hiking kittens.
Everyone's upset. Like every time I'm out there, they're like, "You have cats on a leash. I need to touch that cat and pet it." And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah,
sure.
I have never ever heard of that.
Yeah.
Don't tell my wife.
Oh, I'm absolutely
She-
going to.
she will absolutely love that idea.
Yeah.
And then we'll be hiking with cats.
Yes.
Before I know it. So thank you very much. Maybe she won't listen to this episode. I don't
Catherine,
know.
this one's for you.
Yes, Catherine, this one is for you. So in terms of like where you're headed career-wise with us, however you want to answer this question, I think people are interested, and I think it's hopeful to hear from someone that is in similar situations. Like, where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
I really want to just keep developing my skill. And so in a book, I recently read the difference between being a rock star and, what is it, being a rock star? Okay, you're going to have to cut this part out. Rock star and what's the other one?
What book? are you-
Superstar.
Okay.
So being a rock star and superstar. And
Yeah.
so being a rock star means you're just the rock in that particular field. You're not looking to move forward. You're not looking to go up. You're just looking to know everything about your skill you can. Then you have your superstar who just wants to move forward. You can be those at different parts in your life. So right now I'm trying to focus on being a rock star. I've already had my phase where I've moved up. Now I really want to learn the ins and outs of this job. So the next 5 years, that's my goal, is just to learn everything I can about like development, leadership, building a team, building managers. So that's kind of my focus there. And then as we grow, I would love to see kind of a training department blossom, hopefully.
Yeah. So, okay, two follow-up questions. One, what book did you read that you got Rockstar Superstar from?
I'll have to find that. I do not remember which one that came from.
I like that though.
Yeah, it's one of the books you recommended.
Oh, well,
so
okay.
I'll get, it's in my Audible, so I'll get that.
Okay, yes. We can get that and like maybe put it in the notes. Do we have notes, show notes, Ben? Or somewhere? Okay, we do. We will put that in the show notes. And then the second question is, when you're thinking about goals, how do you set those goals in terms of like measurable? So you set your goals. How do you know if you're attaining them, and what steps how do you set them so that you're taking the right steps to get there?
This is something I've been trying to get better about, actually. So I think for me, it's putting systems into place. Even if I have to take a goal and kind of scale it back, if I don't think at the moment that large goal is attainable, scale it back a little bit and see what system I can put in place to kind of get me there. So whether it's, let's say I want to build a department, it's going to take a lot of organization of my personal systems at work. So I can't bring someone into my department until I have a department created. And so really just kind of getting down to it and just getting it done, focusing on those, and then at any point be willing to adjust. So if I feel like the goal I set for myself is not the current goal, just be willing to pivot to something new.
Yeah, that's great. So last question before we end this, lots of managers listen to this, and so I like to ask this question. You've been a manager, you've been in a lot of different roles. Even now, you're in a little bit different role than even you were last year, and you've been kind of moving and organically building into this role. Now you're here in Lexington. What kind of advice would you give to the managers out there that are listening?
Talk less, listen more. So I think as I was going through my career, I wanted everyone to know my skill. I wanted them to know how much I understood. And so I wanted to jump into every conversation and just be a part of it. Sometimes that led to me talking about things I don't know about enough. And then sometimes I just missed valuable things just because I wanted to speak. So talk less, listen more. And if you know something, don't tell someone like, oh, I already know that. They're going to stop teaching you. Just thank you for the information. Even if someone teaches you something you already know, you might hear it differently and still take something from it. So talk less, listen more. That's
good. I think that you've even said that in the past when you've trained certain managers or maybe past managers, where you've said, well, they didn't listen very well. They said they already knew it. And that's always a sign that they're probably not going to work very well. Yeah. So that's really good advice. I'm going to take that advice too and be better about that. Well, thank you so much for being on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime at all.
It wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be.
It's pretty easy. Yeah, it's pretty casual. And the fact that this is internal, we're not like publicizing it to the world. I mean, it is out there for anybody to listen to, but...
Okay, on that, I would like to say one time I interviewed someone, and the first thing they said was, hey, I looked up that podcast you did with your boss. Do you remember the one you went to Indy for?
Yeah.
And they watched my podcast before talking to me. I was so thrown off by that.
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
People outside might be.
They did their homework.
They did do that. He's the only person who's ever said that, and that's when I learned it was public.
Yes, it is public, even though we say this is more internally focused. We don't really publish it for that reason, but we hope that anybody that listens to it can benefit a little bit for development and growth. So thanks for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.